time zone, sweet world. It is Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. Hello. Welcome into the Anch Show, a broadcast about the video games industry. Hi, I'm going to come up here and try to touch the camera. I want to touch you. What's going on, y'all? It is a special Canada Day edition of the show. I am located in Canada. So to the Canadians who celebrate, I understand that there are some Canadians who do not celebrate for various reasons, depending on their background and where they're from. But if you do, happy Canada Day. But we're here to talk about video games. So hi, my name's Anch. I am a video gamist, first and foremost. I like to play, talk, and write about video games. During the day, though, I am a business analyst. Specifically, I work in accounting and in economics. And so the general run of the show is that we'll talk a little bit about games that we've been playing, and then we'll get into the video game news. And that's really the focus, is to cover some of the main things in the news. We try to keep it tight and up to a max of an hour, but preferably quicker. And that's just the nature of, there's so much stuff to cover and so many different places from which the information comes. Trying something a little bit different today in terms of, you'll notice on this side, there's a window here, which we'll be using here live to help just kind of work through all the different information that's out there. Of course, if you're on the audio recording, I'll do my best to explain what's going on. But I mean, it's not like there's a massive amount of visuals. It'll be fine. So that's about it. We also, so as I say, generally talk about games that we've been playing. So what have we been doing? We've been playing Pokémon Yellow. That's the main thing. So that was on Saturday. The archive of that video is up. I have gone through and painstakingly edited it to try and remove much of the noise that exists in that game. The final number that I came down to was about kind of a time of 2 hours and 23 minutes. And I think the full video, which I also uploaded, is roughly 6 hours. So that's like about, if we just round things off, it's like for every 2 hours of gameplay, then there's 4 hours of, kind of noise. It's not really noise. Like, you're still playing the game, but you're doing the things that you need to do to be able to progress in the game, right? And so the idea is then to archive just the progress and give you some timestamps in there to help you navigate whatever you're interested in watching, because 2 hours is a long time. And I mean, who's going to sit there and watch 2 hours in a world where you have all kinds of different things to watch and different things to consume? We could go off on a whole entire different tangent on what that's looking like. I feel like a couple of the big things that have been going on just thematically in the discourse has been the stop killing games thing, which I am not going to touch with a 10-foot pole. And the second thing is the return, the return of piracy, if you will, which I'm also not going to touch outside of to say, I feel like the value proposition from a lot of these streaming companies has really fallen apart. I don't subscribe to any of them anymore. They're too expensive. They don't give you enough, and you don't you cannot comprehensively get everything from one place anymore. It used to be just Netflix, and that used to be really affordable. It is not the case anymore. So I really, like, if I do go to a Netflix, or if I do go to a Disney Plus, or I go to the one of them at a time. I go to them for that one thing that I'm looking for, like Andor, for example. That would make me go where I don't even know, is that Disney or is that Paramount? Whatever, whichever one it's on, right? I would go to that one and do it for a month, watch the thing that I'm interested in, and then cut it and move on. And so there's like a ton of different ways that people can go pirate they games and they TV shows and film and whatever. But I have opted to just not consume the media. That's basically where I'm at with it. But anyway, Pokemon Yellow, it's cool. I'm familiar with Red to a large extent, and so it's not like going through the different game beats isn't going to be totally new up to a point. There will be a point where I haven't progressed past before, or I simply don't remember it, and that'll be cool. But it's different in its setup with how you're interacting with Pikachu and all these little things that are going on. I should also say that I'm playing with hardcore retro achievements, and so what that means is there's no save stating. You're playing as if you actually had the Game Boy, and um, yeah, there are achievement sets there that will reward me with achievements for certain things, like making Pikachu mad. I have a YouTube short on that as well. It was pretty hilarious. Um, so that's been cool. Very very much looking forward to that. Continuing that, I think I still want to edit those videos, but what I'll end up doing is I will upload the edited video, and I will probably just keep the full video for my own records, or I'll upload that and just make it unlisted, just so I have a backup of it somewhere. That's probably the way to go, just to reduce the amount of work that has to happen afterwards in terms of production. Um, so that's Pokemon Yellow. We'll continue that on Saturday. Otherwise, I've been playing Mario Kart World wherever I can squeeze it in. I've been having quite a bit of fun with that, although I just play it offline for the most part. Actually, mostly the only time I play it online is when we have friends that want to play online together in our own lobbies, and then I'll do it that way. I've been reading about it a little bit, and I've been hearing about how like a meta is emerging with like weird character tier lists and car tier lists and combinations, but also like an overall strategy called bagging, which is like basically in this game you're meant to an effective strategy becomes uh, you intentionally want to be somewhere within fourth to second place for most of the race up until that last lap, and really holding on to really important items that could help you push through to first at the very end. Because if you just try to go for first and maintain first, you will get knocked out. Somebody will invariably get you. And I think, is one of the first things that I reacted to and thought of when I saw it happening on streams when our friends were playing, and kind of the reactions that it was eliciting, which is like really frustration is what that creates. But that you have these maps that are super wide, and they are designed for a much bigger level of players to be playing concurrently. But you're adding all these items and all these different things together, and so what that means is that on average, there are going to be more interactions. Like more items get to the players. Players are able to use more to attack other players, causing more chaos in the game. And so, as compared to previous iterations, then it just seems like it'll be a little bit more frustrating of an experience. And I find that to be a little bit of a shame. I think when you play single player, and you're just going through, it can still happen. It happened to me going through some of the they call it 100cc. It's just a measure of difficulty and also speed of the vehicles. 100cc is the middle one. Happens to me, but I would imagine not nearly as often as it would online and does online. Because players are just a little bit better than a CPU. So yeah, the thing though with Mario Kart, though, I mean, overall, really really enjoying it. I think you really do need to play this thing in HDR. If you do not, it looks really bad. So it's not surprising that the console is constantly, if you do not have HDR turned on, it is constantly reminding you that you can turn HDR on. And even if you have there are two toggles in the system settings for HDR, and you can toggle one off, but it seems like if the other one is enabled, it will turn HDR on for every software regardless. It's a weird kind of thing. I noticed this as I was going through and testing different settings to see what it would look like. And when I hit both switches off, then I finally got the true SDR or standard definition colors look, and that is faded and dull and bleak. It's bad. It's real bad. And so I was like, oh no, I don't care if the tone mapping to OBS and whatever is not perfect. I need to play this game in HDR and also just push SDR through the stream. That looks better than just trying to do it in SDR. So that's that's the thing for sure. Outside of that, so you have like I guess they don't refer to it as an open world, but there is a bit of there's a world. It kind of looks like Australia, and you're kind of driving through. You can drive through the different courses, and there are a bunch of different ways that they you can that they can help you traverse through the world. I think one of the ways is you can drive into a UFO and get abducted, and now all of a sudden you're in the sky and you're flying around. But as you explore the world, it becomes a really smart way to. So I guess there are people on all sides of the discussion who are, some people are like, oh, hey, cool, this is a new thing. I think I count myself as one of those people. It's like, yes, you should try new things. You should make different things and see how that goes. But there are also people, and I could also fall on this side in terms of like a traditional experience, a traditional driving game, racing game. What should that be like? And how does the driving feel? Another thing that's really important to me in games is driving. Whether it's a driving game or it's driving inside of games, how does that feel? And how does that work? But yeah, anyway, coming back to the open world nature of it, I think there are some really smart things that they do to help you learn the different tracks, because I believe most of what you're driving on are portions of tracks in some way, shape, or form. And so if you're just roaming around and if you're interacting with all these different things that are going on, and in the moment you're just playing a game and you're having fun with that. But what's happening in the background is you're actually learning these tracks, and you're kind of taking a look at all these different paths that are available. And then, once you're actually inside of a race and you see these wide open tracks, there are like different paths inside of each track to take. And there are now more movement options available to you. Even though the individual movement it feels a bit swimmy, overall you have a lot of tools available to you to make quick adjustments to how you move. And so if you have a large track to work within to do that, now you have very interesting decisions to make on each point of the race as you're going through. And I think that's really interesting and a really cool thing that this game does. It tries to do really well. Sometimes I find it frustrating, but I'm still learning it. And so, ostensibly, as I keep playing it, I'll get better at it, right? And that'll come that whole portion of the experience will kind of come to life. So we'll check out some Mario Kart World after. It doing great for me so far, but it's the only thing right now that I'm interested in on that platform. And so we'll wait for Bonanza, and that'll be the next thing, and that'll catch my attention for however long it does. Until I'll want something else on that Switch. I guess another thing to mention as well is just the another interesting thing about why they've done this kind of, or why I think they've done this kind of open world thing, is also just trying to get more people to communicate with each other, interact with each other in different circles. And then pushing you to the Nintendo Online thing, where you can get platinum points, and then you get redeems, you get icons, you can create your little icons and show them off to all your friends on Switch. And I think the idea is that you keep pushing people to these different things and keep them in your ecosystem, right? And if you had done a smaller experience with tighter races and less social connection type of stuff, then you don't get the same ability to try and pull them into your ecosystem and keep them there and insulate them from all the other things that we could be doing in the universe of choices and our limited budgets. Right. So I understand kind of intuitively why this kind of a thing is being done. And that's mostly what I have to say about Mario Kart. We'll move on. So what I will say though is, so this is an article from VGC here. So there is a Mario Kart World patch that has made it harder to have standard 3-lap races, which again, uh, I really don't like it when these kind of things happen, because essentially what's happening is there are portions of the player base who have found what they like and what they don't like, and what, and therefore how they want to play this game. And from the developer and the publisher perspective, they're like, oh no, well, we didn't want this to happen, so now we have to change it to try and change the behavior back to what we wanted it to be, right? And that makes for pretty poor player experiences in some cases, and could push people out the door completely. So as you may know, the game has traditional lap-based courses, but also these kind of longer form courses that is really kind of a one-shot long run through multiple courses, right? I think it's called Knockout Tour is probably what they're referring to here. And so you were able to pick any of the 30 tracks in the game, and then they could pick a standard 3-lap course, and I think they were able to hit random, and then it would just pick a random 3-lap course. But now it'll pick a random between 3-lap or this kind of intermission style race, and so you can't guarantee that you can do a 3-lap race in it. So anyway, all that to say, I think it would have been really nice if players could control what exactly they're going for. Can they go for this 3-lap? Can they go for intermission course? Can they control lobby size? It would be really nice to reduce lobby size, and keep, just more customization over, can I play this game the exact way that I want to play it? Because if you can't, it just, man, like, I'm just going to go do something else if this is really annoying me in a sense, right? So that's what's going on there. Keeping on Nintendo, moving on. So on Canada Day, we get the news that certain prices are increasing. Nintendo prices, predominantly, it's expected to be the Nintendo Switch, but it could be accessories as well. It will not be the Nintendo Switch 2. So, and that's right, yeah. Right. So the prices do not apply to the Switch 2 console. So many of these articles are making the link to Donald Trump announcing ending trade talks with Canada, and Canada walking back on digital services tax. I think that the things that they're talking about here certainly create instability in marketplaces, in stock exchanges. That creates instability in exchange rates, and that could increase potential costs for Nintendo in America. But there's no direct link on how that would affect prices, or costs rather, in Canada. And so I don't really see the link here between that economic uncertainty that is happening between Canada and the US, and Japan and Canada, in the connection there, right? Now, unless from Japan they are shipping things into America and then somehow needing to put it to Canada, but I don't know. It could be the case. I don't see why they would do that. But I mean, I'm not 100% certain on how that works there. I think the other thing though here is that these prices have been there for a while. I believe these are the original kind of list prices, right? And so that's since 2017. The 2017, what is the 2017 Canadian dollar versus today? Is something that I meant to go look up. I think it's lost about 19% value. And so $100 in 2017 is equivalent to about 124 Canadian dollars today. So you lose some of that bite to inflation for sure. But I think the larger thing that's going on here to think about is anytime when you have multiple products that you're trying to sell and you're trying to make pricing decisions on these products, you consider them in a mix, in a product mix. You don't consider them in their own silo. And so you will come up with estimates of sales in a sale mix and how much of each and how much product demand you expect for each product. And then you consider how individual prices relate to that demand, and you consider how the relationship between the prices can influence demand for products. I think then you would also consider how your products are priced versus how competitors' products are priced, because all these products are all substitutes for each other, right? They're now substitute handhelds. I think the three major ones that come to mind would be the Switch, which I'm lumping together with the Switch 2, right? The Switch line of products, that's one. Then you have the Steam Deck handhelds, that's two. And then the third one would be like the Xbox branded handhelds. And I'm not sure if we did get prices on the Xbox handhelds. Either way, they will certainly be expensive. They'll be closer to around the Switch 2 area for sure. Then you have the Steam Deck, which offers, I think they also offer a cheaper version, but they have a more expensive version as well. And so now you also have the Switch, the Switch 1, which is a substitute for the Switch 2 as well, right? And I think that is what is being considered here when they say we're going to increase prices. Because of course, there is some bite of inflation. There could be some cost increase from uncertainty, or there could be some expected revenue loss because of uncertainty that Nintendo wants to price in somehow. That could be the case, for sure. I think there is also another case to be made to say, when we're making a value proposition to you, and you're, as a consumer, you're going out there, and you could be all types of different consumers. I don't know, you could be somebody who already has a Switch, you could be somebody who doesn't have any Switch, and now this is your first foray into this whole thing. And let's just imagine that you were just starting out, and you had never kind of bought one of these things before, and then you walked in and you saw that here's this thing for bloody $826 at the end of it, or here's this thing for half the price. And sure, it's 6 years old, but what's right now, if I get it today, what am I going to get? And what am I going to get for it? What am I going to play? And I'm going to have all these old games, and I'm going to have all these different older things that are here, but I mean, hey, maybe I'll make use of it. I think like there really could be, for people that are really stretching their budgets, there could be a case to be made to say, hey, I might just buy a Switch and not get the Switch 2. And so you might be in a world where you say, okay, well, we'll increase the price of the Switch, and that makes it less appealing. Because then, let's say that the Switch goes up to, I don't know, how much could it go? Could it go $450? Maybe $450, maybe $500 at max, I would think. At which point then you would say, okay, well, maybe I wait for a couple of months, build up some money, and then I'll go in and I'll buy the Switch 2, and I'll just eat it on that. But that's what I kind of see going on here. Yeah, and so the prices, right? We see that here. 400 is basically the current sale price. OLED's 450. So maybe not 450 well, across these lines, maybe a $50 to $100 increase could be. Anyway, so that's the thing going on with Nintendo. We'll move it on to EA. And so if I scroll it up here, this is an insanely long graph that we'll kind of get into here. I think there are better ways to visualize this, but okay, we'll take a look at that. Boy. So this is out of GameFile, Stephen Totilo. This is publication. This is EA's CEO pay is up as EA worker median income drops. And so, behold, the tallest chart in GameFile history. Plus, EA execs were paid a little more for boosting generative AI. It's not the main thing of this story, but it's certainly a thing to discuss in the story. So the main beats. EA CEO Andrew Wilson has received $31 million in cash and stock awards for the 12 months ending March 31st, 2025. This is up nearly $5 million US from the year before. It is a significant boost for them. EA has reported that the median income for full-time employees in 2024 was $117,000, down from $149,000 the year before. This is based on median. I won't call it the median average, but the median measure, and not the mean, which is the average. And they say here, median pulling from a middle of the middle observation, and the mean is your adding up all the salaries, dividing by the number of people, right? I think a quick thing here to say is mean versus median. In these measures, just analytically, the median is generally preferred because it is not skewed by higher salary. So, I think in these situations, you will have, generally speaking, a lot of people making relatively less money, and then you will have relatively fewer people making a lot more money. Right? In the non-executive, like when you're looking at all this, which who knows if I doubt that their salary figures also include the executive staff, right? It does, almost certainly does not, but it would include senior management employees, in my mind, that will make more money. And so if you were just to average all that, I don't know, it kind of can get skewed by the higher income earners. And so you prefer to take the median because it gives you a true middle reflection of the data set. But yeah, I looked in a little bit more into this to try and dig out some of the figures, but unfortunately their financials aren't too helpful. The salaries are hidden in the cost of revenues, and that is, well, the direct game development salary is hidden inside of the cost of revenues and does not need to be disclosed, so they don't do it. And the general and administrative expenses contains a bunch of different expenses, including executive compensation and administrative staff. So it's very difficult to tease out, year over year, how much people how much people's compensation is changing. I think the only way that you could get some sort of proxy around it was you would need to take a percentage change year over year, maybe 5 years of those cost categories to see how they're tracking, and even only then you'll just be able to get an idea of how the costs have changed over time, and then you can make some sort of relationship to, are on balance, are wages increasing or decreasing? I think that, as in economics, I think we generally just know that wages barely increase over time. For the most part, they are flat, and do not keep pace with inflation. I think that's generally speaking broadly about economies in Canada and in the US. That's what we see. And when you take a look at the games industry, then more specifically, I think it starts to explain some of the things that you see around different outfits trying to unionize and negotiate for higher for wage increases. And so we just, as discussed on previous episodes, we've seen that out of SAG-AFTRA. We've seen that out of ZeniMax so far. So that's what's been going on there. This is a little graph that they have here on Andrew Wilson's annual compensation. So you'll see he was getting maybe up to $44 million in actual compensation paid in 2021. That dipped over the last couple of previous years. Now in 2025, he is actually paid 29 million. This actually paid number is a relatively new figure required by publicly listed corporations in America to file on the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC. They have to not only list the expected compensation expense for the CEO or executive staff members, they also have to represent what was actually paid to them. And so, okay, so we have all that. So the thing is that, the other thing on this graph then, right, because of how the scale is done, with running from $0 to $40 million on the y-axis, when you try to chart median employee income, you notice it's a flat line at the x-axis. And of course, that's because there's a huge disparity between the number of people involved here, right? So I think what would be more interesting to see would be try to get a count of employees. And if you're saying that this is the median employee, then just multiply it through by the number of employees in each year and see how that compares. Because I think that would give you a better comparator of like how much the CEO is being compensated versus how much all of the staff are being compensated. Right. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm nowhere near somebody who's going out here saying, oh yeah, I should defend how much the CEO is making. Like, whatever. I don't think that's the case, but it's not a really helpful comparison. I think it would also be more helpful to see kind of a percentage change year over year, because we can't compare the levels here outside of just like, yes, fine, make the comparison of the level to see how stark the difference is, fine. But then from there, you kind of want to understand a little bit more of how it's changing over time, understand the number of employees, why it's like this, right? Understand how much grosso modo is being paid to the all employees versus how much is being paid to the executive team, right? And that would give you more information to try and compare these things and see if it's reasonable, right? I think we're always too soon to judge and look at this and say like, oh my God, the guy's getting paid so much, but then we don't take it a step further and just try to understand why this is the case, and is it reasonable, and is it happening, in writ large, is this how it happens, and why does it happen like that? Things like that. My 10-second explanation of why it happens like that is like, this is the person that gets paid the big bucks to spend a lot of their time, the most of their time will be trying to run this organization and trying to make sure that they don't screw things up. That's why they're getting compensated so much, whereas, even myself as a regular staff employee where I work, I get paid for my 9 to 5 and then I leave after 5. And, whatever happens after that is what happens. It's kind of outside of my, I'm not always on the clock, right? But therefore, I also don't get compensated as such. Is kind of the way that I look at it. Anyway, we'll move on from there, I think. So anyway, this is insane graph that is basically trying to extend this graph so that you can actually see some variation in how the salaries have moved over time. And so when you do this, then you can see, okay, so the median salaries have at EA have grown from 96,000 in 2018, peaking in 24 at 149,000 before coming back down to 117,000. Right. And so that indicates that there could have been senior staff let go, stuff like this. Okay. So that's what's kind of going on there. I think let's see here. The other thing here, though, was just also talking about well, yes. Okay. So EA laid off 5 to 6% of its workforce in early 2023 and again in early 2024. But they also hired or reassigned workers. right? That suggests that they could have reduced salary expense, but also they could have hired people back at lower wages. It's possible. And so that could also exchange some of that decrease. I think otherwise, there are just comparisons that are being made here to how much other CEOs are being compensated, which I generally found to be in line. I think also it's worth talking about that number that is quoted. Let's see. I think I wrote it down over here. No, I highlighted it here, right? Yeah. So some more detail. So Wilson actually received 1.3 million in cash, 2.8 million in cash bonus, then 700,000 for insurance and personal security, $25 million in stock awards, 10 million worth of stock options is time-based, vesting over 35 months. 15 million is based on performance-based stock options that are tied to business performance metrics, right? And so that's a significant chunk of compensation that is sitting inside of stock units, stock-based compensation, which we've also talked about in the past about why you would do stock-based compensation and all this kind of stuff. Basically to tie incentives towards your business goals, and I believe even this article Stephen talks about it and kind of shows how at EA it is they tie the business objectives to stock options, and how you can see that influencing some of the decision making and some of the messaging, right? Such as investment in generative AI, all this kind of stuff there. But having gone through a little bit of the financial statements, trying to go through the stock options and the restricted stock units and all this kind of stuff, I think I had written down, what page is this? PDF page 149 is where I found it. So I come down all the way to stock-based compensation expense. So as of March 31st, 2025, our total unrecognized compensation costs related to stock options, restricted stock units, market-based restricted stock units, and performance-based restricted stock units was $766 million and is expected to be recognized over a weighted average service period of 1.7 years. So over the next 2 years, let's say, there are $766 million of maximum possible stock options that could be awarded, right? And we're talking here about, for one person, in this year, in one of 2 years, 25 million total, right? So 25 million over 766, right? So if I just take that 25 divided by 766, and so that's about 3.2%, right? His stock compensation in the current fiscal year compared to the total possible that could be awarded over the next 2 years, right? And so you put that number in proportion of the overall what's happening in all different types of stock compensation that you have going on, and now it starts to make a little bit more sense, and is not as kind of a shocking of a thing. That's how I look at this anyway, at the moment. If I figure out later on that I was wrong, then oops, and then you just try to learn from it, I guess. But that seems to make sense to me. All right. So that's fine. I think the only other thing here is just to say, so the 7 performance factors that they're judged by, they include attracting and retaining talent, keeping the business resilient, which I don't know, you would think that would be related to technology, but there's another one based on technology. So I don't know. I think this is just a general adaptability type of thing. Improvements in environmental sustainability, which is also probably, anyway, that also ties to technology. Building games and experiences that entertain massive online communities, right? And so this explains some of the push in their bigger games that try to do this stuff, like Apex and so on. Creating blockbuster interactive storytelling, and so this ties to Dragon Age. And then harnessing the power of community in and around your games. So this is measured in metrics tied to EA Sports. But this harnessing the power of community is another thing that we're seeing all over the place. Like, for example, Nintendo, we were talking about earlier, right? Trying to keep people, all these different outfits are out here trying to keep people in there. Am I no different? Oh, so of course that's one of them. And then you have artificial intelligence, which more on that one below, which is kind of I think we talked about that last week as well, a harrowing thing. So I won't give that redux. But yeah, not favorably viewed at all by consumers in video games. Okay. So, but if we look at the AI goal, so the new AI goal in effect for the 12 months ending March 31st, 2025, it's summarized as follows. Build out and execute against a Gen AI strategy that centers around efficiency, expansion, and transformation. Hey, Holy, thanks for the lurk. No worries. Yeah. And it's measured and addressed in two ways. Advanced task force on strategy and goals, and adopt governance structure and identify multi-year success metrics. The goal is achieved via a task force that prioritizes focus areas and adopting governance structure to support go-forward initiatives and identifying success metrics. The second AI goal measurement, define a plan, including multi-year roadmap with key milestones. They have substantially completed applicable milestones and have delivered in fiscal year 25 and have one to be delivered in early fiscal year 26. The AI goal counts for 10% of the 7 tracked business goals. You know, I'll kind of fall short here of commenting writ large on whatever the AI strategy is, because I'm not familiar with their AI strategy outside of what I heard from their investor conference in 2025, in 2024 rather, last year, which was just basically to say that they're like super all in, But I think as we discussed either last week or a couple of weeks ago, they are recognizing the risks around customer perception and just generally how you can get things really wrong using some of these technologies. And that also means that they have in their management, they have some mitigation strategies built around how to implement these technologies if they're going to do that. And I took a look at their board to get an idea of who these people are and to see, how trustworthy is some of that information if that they're touting all this kind of stuff. And I get the general sense that I get is generally trustworthy. And the reason is for the most part, and the biggest reason is all of these people listed here are Kofi Bruce, CFO, Rachel A. Gonzalez, Jeffrey T. Huber, Talbot Roche. I'm sorry if I pronounced these wrong. That's not the intent. Richard A. Simonson, Louis A. Ubinya, I think, Heidi Uberoth. These are all independent. These are all independent directors, meaning that they do not have active employment at EA. That's what I gather from having read all these bios. However, the only person who is directly related to EA is Mr. Andrew Wilson, the director, the chief executive officer, and the chairman of the board. And that's kind of a governance nightmare. It's very strongly not recommended to have the same person fulfill all of those roles. because effectively your lead on strategy implementation is also your lead on strategy development, and the chairperson who gets to approve final decisions. It means that even if you have all these independent, and it's good that every single other board member is independent, because they can vote on positively or negatively against whatever motion is being passed. But I think if the CEO is still a voting member, a chairperson vote, which means that they would probably have, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have even board member, and so you don't even have a tiebreaker, right? It kind of changes, it skews the room a little bit. They really should be in my mind, in like a true, a purist's governance structure, would not have the CEO as the chairperson. It would be an independent person that has nothing to do with the business, but somebody who is inside of the business. So maybe an executive working at some other company related to software development or in the games industry even. I think that would work out better in terms of making decisions that are for the best for the organization, and not necessarily just the executives. I think this also could explain some of why you might see more stock compensation for the executives, because and specifically for Andrew, right? He would certainly be in a place to have influence over the decisions around how he is compensated. We can at least say that much, right? But I think overall it is healthy that there are a bunch of independent directors that have varied experience in various different contexts. So that's a positive thing to see. Let's move on from EA. The next thing that I want to talk about. So this is a relatively new website. If you're not familiar with thegamebusiness.com, you should check out thegamebusiness.com. They're a free publication on the internet for now, anyway. I think fragmentation of internet services are and streaming services and all this kind of stuff that we were talking about. It's no different here in terms of the news. There are like all these different people who used to work at independent publications. Now all of them have gone off their different ways. A lot of them got fired by the big companies that used to fund all this stuff, and now they're just out there trying to create on their own. Christopher Dring here, on Christopher Dring on screen, is, I think this whole thing is being funded by Jeff Keighley, who is an industry leader in the space. I think at some point I've heard him credited as a journalist, and I don't know that Jeff Keighley's a journalist, but he's certainly an industry leader that funds a lot of things, and runs Summer Games Fest and all that kind of stuff. But this is good. The credit to Jeff Keighley for funding such a project, because I think this is like sorely missing from the industry is good independent coverage of the business of the industry. And you get some of that from, as I say, from multiple different places. I think predominantly VentureBeat's good. Games Industry Up is good, which is where Christopher Dring used to work. Anyway, so Game Business, this is cool. It's a cool little thing going on here. They're working on a premium tier too, so I don't know. Fingers crossed that the free proposition is still decent, or at least that the premium one will be decently priced and accessible. Because if you look at what Ampere costs, like, by the way, if you were to try and go like, oh, I wonder how much subscription to Ampere Analysis costs, because I'm insane, and they don't publish that stuff, but I would guess like $1,400 a month US would be how much that costs. Like, oh yeah, that's right. It's very much a service that is there for the businesses to use, not the individual hobbyist out here trying to piece things together. So anyway, so this article here, this is an interview that he did with oops, sorry, an alarm went off. Nick Poole, CEO of UK games trade body Yuki. And so this was it was generally going over the state of industry support in the UK for the video games business. And in a sentence, we need a growth mindset. Studios need to start believing they can grow. After receiving significant backing from the government, the UK government has announced it'll invest £30 million, around $41 million, I'm assuming that's US, in the UK industry, targeting young developers and early stage studios. Okay, so let's hang on to that number. That's 41 million USD, or 30 million pounds. Okay. They're forming a UK video game council, which will give a regular direct line to the government. In Canada, we have the ESA, I suppose. I don't know if they're a direct line. They're an industry association. I don't know if they're a direct line to the government, though. This is in recognition that games aren't a subsector of TV and film. They're their own sector. This is true. And we're seeing investment that was running through film. We're seeing regulation that was born somewhere else and being applied to games. Games are a unique intersection of creativity, technology, and community. We don't want to be legislated for as an afterthought to anyone else. What these announcements do is they put games front and center, what they're calling a frontier industry with an agenda all of our own. Once we've secured that recognition, we need to make sure it's safe beyond the lifetime of this parliament, and we need to look at how we build on that for regulatory and financial support. This is brilliant. This is what is sorely needed in Canada, in my opinion. There is in limited conversations that I've had with different anytime I interview, basically, anytime I've interviewed for any of these video game consultants and all this kind of stuff, I always ask them, what are they thinking about in terms of government support for games? And have you had discussions with regulators and all this kind of stuff? And I always get a blank stare back. They have no idea what I'm talking about, and I feel like an idiot for having even asked. But I mean, what can you do? It's complete blind spot exists in this, and it's so important to have this. The problem is that who's going to lead that push, right? I would be interested in taking a closer look at who Mr. Poole is here, but we really need that kind of leadership. I think it would go a long way to help the industry in Canada. And like globally, it's a shrinking industry. It's an industry under pressure. I should be careful about the terminology. I don't know if it's necessarily shrinking, but I think you can definitely say that there is a bit. It feels like there's a contraction for sure. It also feels like there is a lot of risk, and that in particular, the individuals who are making the games are struggling. And are under constant pressure of being eliminated, I guess, is kind of the thing is going on. And that's symptomatic of an industry that is struggling a bit to manage its costs and maintain a clip of financial performance that is being expected. And so having a bit of industry of government support to offset some costs is great. Having some overall industry support to help with planning, knowledge sharing, just better management would also go a long way. And these are the kind of things that government support can achieve. And, a link to the regulators can achieve through the design of different policies that can help improve the overall environment. That's the thinking here, right? So that when I read this, that's what I'm seeing going on here in the UK, and that's fantastic. That's amazing. So yeah, there's a lot of money accumulated in investment vehicles. Investors are sitting on. They aren't seeing the VC returns that they were seeing multiple years ago. And so, hey, this government support helps replace some of that lost funding, but we now need to go out and encourage investors to meet the government backing with their own investment, and then we can fund the projects that we want. And so, here when we come to, we need a growth mindset. We need to believe that we can scale the businesses. This only works if we go from the 12, 15 people making a moderately successful game, aspire to build 50 to 100 people teams that are making globally successful IP and franchises. So the thing here, I can talk about in Canada. A shocking number of enterprises in Canada are small businesses. And I think the definition of small business is, I'll have to look it up just to make sure I get it right. But Statistics Canada, small business definition, I think it's below 100, if I remember correctly. 1 to 99 employees. Between 1 to 99 employees in Canada means small business. I think if you're 100 to 500, what's the next threshold? Medium. Oops. Let's see. Yeah. 100 to 500 is 100 to 499 is medium. 500 or more is defined as large. To be a small business corporation in Canada, you're a private corporation. You're not listed publicly anywhere. You have less than $500 million of active business income in Canada, and you have less than $10 million of assets in Canada. Generally, those are the three things to say that you're a small business in Canada. And then, the third thing here on the StatCan definition, on the Statistics Canada definition, you have less than 100 employees, right? Then you're a small business. There is a whole tax incentive structure that is built around this idea of having a small business in Canada. There are multiple tax benefits that you get as meeting the definition here. The major one is that the corporate tax rate in Canada for regular corporations is about 38%. And if you are a small business, you get a whole bunch of deductions that effectively makes your marginal corporate tax rate 9%, right? Because it's if I just go get a calculator up here, 38% minus 10% abatement minus, I think, there's a general rate reduction. I want to say it's 9%. That's right. There's a general rate. Anyway, don't worry. I'm not going to try to recall the specifics there, but 9% effectively is the small business corporation tax rate, right? And so when you have a structure like that, you're really disincentivized from growing a whole bunch, because if you were to grow past a certain point, you're now going to give up that all those benefits that you're getting in terms of having this lower tax rate, right? And so you will have a bunch of small corporations, and I'm just talking more broadly now than just video games, but you'll have a bunch of different small corporations that are not incentivized to group together or try to see how they can double their size or like all this different kind of stuff. They're just like, you know what? We pay way less tax. We have way less costs when we're this much smaller. Let's just stay at this clip because we're making a fine amount of money if we're successful doing it this way. And there's no Sure, so some industry or like some industry leader or some government leader over here is like telling, oh, we got to be more productive. But hey, man, I'll have to pay a whole bunch more tax, and I don't want to do that. It's going to increase my costs. I'm going to make less money. Or typically, I guess what seems to happen is that people just say in Canada, just say, oh, screw it, I'll go to the States. I'll sell my business to somebody in the States who wants to buy it. And they can do whatever the hell they want with it. I'll take the money and I'll start something else small. And that seems to be the loop. So this is kind of the challenge that I see when you're trying to incentivize growth. And so, the I guess for this to work, on the one hand, you need to, of course, encourage people in the industry to grow their organizations. But then you also need to work with the regulators to say, hey, how can we change some of the things that you do to really make it worthwhile for all these people to grow their business? And that's going to really depend on the individual country's regulatory setup and the willingness of the regulators to, and really competence or capability of the regulators to understand everything that's going on and work with you. So really fascinating stuff here. So I think that's just the main thing to get out of this. I did take a little bit of a dive to see what is the extent of supports in Canada. I think what it amounts to is, I think video game developers will have between, it can cost anywhere from $500 to $300 million. I think we talked about Remedy's Control to potentially costing $250 million is something that I had estimated anyway. One of the major ways in which video game companies can get tax credits back is going to be through what's known as SHRED. That's the term for it, but it's scientific research and experimental development is a tax incentive. And this basically gives companies a tax credit up to 69%, nice, of labor and overhead costs, 36% of contractor costs, 45% of material costs. But it is like, of course, I've never filed a SHRED claim for a video game company, so far be it from me to know. But I think basically what's happening here is if you have the capacity and resources to be a corporation and file a corporate tax return, then chances are that you have an accounting department that will take care of your SHRED, and they will do this. So your bigger corporations, absolutely, it's gonna work. But your medium size to even small business corporations, questionable whether they're going to be able to even know that SHRED is a thing. Because maybe you're just a small business that you just have your little accounting system and you do all your stuff through that. It's some off the shelf thing that you're using and that works for you and that's fine. And you're just concerned about running your business and making your game. And that's great. But you might not know of all these things that are available to you. And you certainly might not know how to even begin filing a SHRED or like tracking all these different costs and doing all this different stuff, right? There almost certainly is strict definitions around like what counts as an eligible expense and what doesn't, and you wouldn't know how to properly do that if you then file a SHRED thing and then later on you come under audit. Now you have to defend it. Maybe you have to pay back taxes if these were not eligible for deduction and so on, and that can become a mess really fast. And maybe you can't afford an accountant to do the work for you. So I can see a whole bunch of ways in which SHRED could not be claimed, even if it was eligible, would not be able to be claimed by a small business corporation. And by the way, as an aside on tax policy, this stuff happens because, hey, if you don't claim it or you're not able to claim it, then we don't have to pay it, right? And so you will see a lot of this stuff in traditional conservative tax policy that would do this kind of stuff, because then we get to save that money and then it rolls back to our fiscal profile and that's it. And we just kind of wash our hands of it, so something to be aware of, for sure. Outside of that, in Canada, the federal government, largely speaking, does not deliver programs. They provide funding to the provinces, who then delivers certain programs. That's like a really oversimplification of the whole thing. I think if we're talking specifically to in video games, which we should always do, or for the most part, we'll try to do, um, the the provinces would be responsible for delivering their programs, and so you will see that with the Ontario government funding, for example. And so, hey, Paula, it's what's it called? I think it's called Ontario Creates. That's called Scott Pilgrim EX game. If you go look at that, I'm pretty sure they have the Ontario Creates logo on it. I think Street Uni X was BC funded, I think. But anyway, suffice it to say, there are a bunch of different provinces that provide funding. Federal government might kick in funding to those provinces in existing agreements, which then the provinces can use. That can also happen. But hey, anyway, so that's what's going on there. I also went a little bit further to look into the what's it called? It's the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, industry data on Canada. And so they value the Canadian video game industry at $5.1 billion total revenue, bringing in $5.1 billion of total revenue in 2024. One kind of interesting thing while we're on the topic of kind of tax credits and grants and all this kind of, basically, what's the level of industry support for games in Canada is the question that I'm trying to answer here. You know, as I go through this list from funding.ryan.com, which, you know, I don't know, it's copyright 2025 Ryan. So maybe it's oh boy, maybe it's trustworthy, maybe it's not. I mean, they have a business address. It's probably fine. It just goes to show you that in video games, we don't like have, like, KPMG is not going to have a site on, hey, video game company, you know, you know, your Deloitte and PwC isn't going to have that. It's Ryan. God damn it, Ryan sounds trustworthy. Yeah, that's right. So, but yeah, anyway, that's why you also go to industry websites and try to figure out what's going on here. And so I think a reliable way to estimate this is just to say, okay, the industry association is telling me there's 5.1 billion of total revenue. They're also giving me a percentage breakdown of how that exists. For the lion's share of this is intercompany or transfer pricing, which means that there are a bunch of foreign corporations, so multinational corporations, right? And so the kind of intercompany sales, I guess, of goods, so that it can then be sold on to the end user. So I don't know, like maybe something made in the US and then it has to be sold to the Canadian company, the intercompany. They make a sale and then the product is now in Canada and then it goes out to the end user and then some, you know, actual revenue is made to the third party there. And so that's 45% of the total Canadian pie of total revenue. You come down here, though, specifically for other tax credits, grants, bursaries. So this is all the public funding, 2%, right? So we take 2% of 5.1. So 2%, oops. Of 5.1 billion. 5.1 right, so $102 million then is what that means. So it looks like on an annual basis, you can expect about $100 million of support in Canada for in terms of funding from government programs writ large, right? And so 100 million Canadian, 100 million Canadian to US dollars is 73 million US dollars. 73 million US dollars to 41 million US dollars in the UK. That's kind of the comparator between the two. So that's interesting. It seemingly less. But you know what? That UK figure specifically, I don't know what that's counting. I don't know if that counts everything, right? So anyway, at least we're in the same ballpark. As a starter, as an estimate, I'm happy that it's somewhere in the same. It's not like we're dealing with, they're saying 41 million and I calculated 1 billion. What's going on here? No, that's not the case. So that's okay. But this is a pretty interesting document. I think another couple of things here, of course. Ubisoft. One of the things that cracked me up on this website is they also give you top selling games in Canada, and they had Assassin's Creed Shadows, which, I mean, good for Assassin's Creed. That's awesome. Fourth biggest in April 2025 for Canada. They have a little Canadian flag on here. But Ubisoft isn't a Canadian company. It's oops. Sorry, we hit ads. That's what that sound means. But yeah, Assassin's Creed is not, or rather, Ubisoft is not. They're based in France, right? And this is a Canadian website. The other thing that kind of makes me laugh about this website is that the language options at the top right are two flags that are not Canadian flags. This is so at the top right, that's a France flag over there. You click on the France flag, and now you get everything in French. If it loads, right? esa.ca/fr. And then to go back to English, it's Union Jack, which is not I don't know. It's not, it's basically the UK flag, right? The Union Jack is. So very strange for a Canadian website to be visiting a Canadian website on Canada Day talking about made in Canada, 20 plus years of pay. But then you go to the top right and it's like, what? There's a France flag and the Union Jack? What's going on here? Why just write EN and FR? Anyway. Aside from that, I think the only other thing here that kind of caught my attention was just some of the figures they have around industry, around organization size. So I'm just trying to find that. I think it's probably higher in the document. Let's see here. Maybe not. Here we go. Oh, average salary overall $102,000 is the average salary in the industry. Senior employees can make $131,000. I'm assuming that's on average. So about 34,000 people are employed by the industry in Canada. And I'm trying to find here. Is this it? Here we go. So in Canada, gosh, I really wish they would give the percentage proportion. But in Canada, you have 103. So out of the 821 businesses that were counted in 2024, you have 50 that are very large, 42 that are large. So, man, I'm really gonna have to open up an Excel sheet to track all of this. Just when you're making tables, just also put group your data better, I guess. I don't know. And maybe put a column for percentage as well. Because, all right, so you have sole, then you have micro, then very small, medium, large, very large. Across Canada, I'm not really interested so much in the across provinces. That's fine. I think, you're going to see most of the activity in Ontario, Quebec, and BC. That makes sense. That's where most of the people live. But sole, you have 103 businesses. Micro, you have 341. Very small, 112. Small, 111. Medium, 62. Large, 42. Very large, 50. Right? And That is the number. Welcome back from ads. That is the number of businesses that we're grouping together. And then if we have the employment numbers, I think they give us employment percentages by region. Do they give us employment percentages by? I think they do here. Employment by company size. So for sole proprietorship, 13%. Percent of companies, percent of employment. Oh, I see. 550. Okay. So sole proprietorship employs 0.3% of the total FTE, which is FTE means full-time equivalent, which isn't necessarily people, but it represents one FTE would be one person's worth of work. I guess is the way to say that. So FTE percent, let's do a column for FTE percent, and then let's do let's record 34010 as the number. And so we'll see here FTE 0.3%, and in a micro firm, it's 1%. Very small firm, 2% of all FTEs. Small firm, 5%. Medium firm, 7%. Large firm, 9%. Finally, very large, 19%. That sums to 40%, which is not 100%. And then here they have a final column that says outlier, 200 plus employees. Oh, I see. So this is, okay. So this graph particularly is dealing with the largest 25 companies. So the largest 25 companies support 58% of the FTEs. Oh no. Okay. So the largest, so the outlier, 58% is the 25 largest companies. So the 25 largest companies, therefore, employ 19.7 thousand FTEs. They have that much person's worth of work. And the other ones contained in the graph represent the other 13.7 thousand persons worth of work in Canada. If we try to group that together in a bit more of a smart way, then we would say, well, let's group together the small, sole, micro, and very small, and that's 667 businesses. Then we take the medium alone, that's 62, and then take the large, very large together, right? And so then, if you were to do that, then it's 8% of the FTEs in small businesses. It is roughly, right? It's the same 7% for medium. And then you would take the large and very large, and you would add on the outlier onto there, right? And so if that seems to make sense. And so it would be, I would say 83% of the employment in the video games industry in Canada is in large businesses, right? Defined as 100 plus employees, that kind of thing. It would be there, and that would represent 28,000 FTEs. The medium would be 2.3 thousand FTEs, and the small businesses would represent about 2.8 thousand FTEs, about 2,800. Like, let's just think of it as people. Then 2,800 people would be in small businesses, 2,300 people would be in medium sized, and 28,000 people would be in large business. Okay. So that's interesting to go take a look at. Coincidence that it's also Canada Day. Anyway, fascinating stuff. Good for the game. Good for the game business. Hopefully we'll see the same kind of stuff out of Canada. That would be fantastic. And that's basically it for the news today. I think I had another couple of things here, but they're really just quick hits and looks ahead type of stuff. We had already talked about how, like, in my view, how aggressive Sega is being, and so Christopher Dring did an interview here with Mr. Shuji Tsumi on a resurgent Japan and what I think of like a resurgent Sega, and kind of how aggressive that posturing seems to be. Well, I mean, that's my take. That's certainly not what they'll talk about, but I think that comes through when you listen to some of the messaging here. That's a fascinating one to check out. I think the other thing here is Kojima wants to be the first person to make a game in space. I want to be the first. That's a funny article. You should read that. I think Mr. Kojima is underestimating how hard it is to become an astronaut and not only just physically be able to endure the things that you have to do to get there, like being able to withstand multiple G forces and all that kind of stuff, but also the fact of like when you are up there, what your life is like, and like what it's no walk in the park. Like, they're not living in luxury up there. It's it's very cold, and you don't have the amenities of like a toilet and a shower. Like, they have space toilets, but boy, that's very uncomfortable. Having looked at some of the YouTubes on that stuff, they don't have showers. They have to like towel down and all this kind of stuff. And really, you want to go there and like, I want to be the first in space to make a game. Yeah. Weird, man. But okay. And then finally, look forward to another showcase, since all the companies have to do their individual stuff now. Bandai Namco will be doing a summer showcase on July 2nd. So that's tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I'll miss it. But maybe I'll go watch it after the fact. And that's going to do it for the news. So, hey, thanks a lot for coming by. Really appreciate it. But of course, I mean, if you can't be here live or whatever, no problem. We go to Patreon and we go to Spotify. We're wherever you get podcasts. So that's all good. And yeah, we'll be back again. Don't know if we'll be back tomorrow. Hey, thanks, Tomahawk. I appreciate that. You're welcome. Happy to provide information. We might not be back tomorrow because I just have to scale down a few things that I'm doing, but I don't know. We'll see. Definitely we will be back on Friday, and certainly back on Saturday to continue Pokemon, and next Tuesday to talk about the news. We'll keep going for some Mario Kart here, but I'm just going to stop the recording here. But thanks a lot. We will tune in again next week. Bye-bye.